I'm talking not hundreds, thousands from people all over the world, mainly from Australia, but from all over the world, just curious, why Greece and why now if you're a buyer?
So I suggest we flip this interview today and maybe you can ask me all these questions.
You've got the intellectual knowledge and the intellectual property that I want to share with the consumers. Can anyone buy? Can a foreigner invest in Greece?
Anybody can buy in Greece, so it's a very, very hot area.
When I invest in Greece, the most likely spot I'll be buying, the first one will be in that part of the world, and it'll be in Glyfada.
So the past, about 3 years back, the growth was like 8 to 9% every year.
Which areas are the smartest long-term investments? Well, you'd know. Everyone loves the crystal ball and say, go for this area, this area.
So having a base somewhere in Athens, actually, for a foreigner, sometimes it's actually a better solution because they're not trapped in one destination.
Do they borrow from a bank in Greece, or should they be borrowing from the bank that they already have in their country?
And the average interest rate is around about 3.5% plus minus.
A lot of people make mistakes. Let's share the info so the people watching this don't make the same mistakes. Peter, you've been absolutely incredible and thorough in answering these questions in a clear, concise, no fluff. What would you be investing right now if you had 500,000 euros?
Welcome to Inside Greek Real Estate, fueled by PMD. I'm Peter Giannakis, Managing Director of PMD Real Estate, which is based in Glyfada, on the Athens Riviera. Inside Greek Real Estate is a podcast that's main focus is to interview people that have invested in real estate in Greece, to have insights of their experiences, either positive or negative, so somebody that's thinking of investing in Greece can have a better idea of what to expect. Today, I have the pleasure of having a special guest here. He's an international real estate coach, which is based in Australia. He works all over the globe, and I'm very honoured to have Tom here today.
Peter, it's an absolute pleasure and privilege to be here with you. You know, we've done some work over the last couple of weeks, training and education, and I've got to tell you, I've been doing a travel vlog as I have been touring around Greece, and I am just inundated with direct messages. I'm talking not hundreds, thousands from people all over the world, mainly from Australia, but from all over the world, just curious about real estate. So I'm as excited as you are because I want them to know this information.
That's great. That's very interesting, Tom. And usually I interview the guests, but today, because Tom has exposure to like thousands of investors, real estate professionals, and he has a lot of questions. So I suggest we flip this interview today and maybe you can ask me all these questions so we can give people a better idea.
Absolutely. You've got the intellectual knowledge and the intellectual property that I want to share with the consumers, and 75% of my audience is in fact buyers and sellers of real estate. 25% are real estate agents, and I do a lot of work on television and radio for News Corporation in Australia, which is Sky News. So if it's possible, Peter, I really would love to ask you the things that have been coming in my DMs, the messages that have been coming from people. So I'd like to ask you to start off with, firstly, where's your office at?
The office is based in Glyfada, Athens, Greece. I opened up the company back in 2005, so we just passed 20 years.
Your English is absolutely brilliant, so there's a reason that you have spent time outside of Greece, isn't it?
Yes. I was actually born in Sydney, Australia, and I grew up there, but I came at a fairly young age. I came to Greece at the year of 12 years old, sorry.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you straight off, Peter, why Greece and why now if you're a buyer? Why would you look at Greece, and why would you look at Greece right now?
Look, there's a lot of things happening in Greece right now. There's a lot of interest from foreign investors for various reasons. It was, first of all, Greece was, the real estate market suffered for quite a long time. It was a very extended period of nearly like 9 years. So no one knew where the pit would, reach where the prices were going to reach. It was like very difficult. But ever since 2014, things started picking up slightly, and a lot of people identified opportunities in regards to the development of Greece in general, and new measures that were taken from the government. There are also tax incentives that attract a lot of foreign investors. It's the lifestyle, it's the political stability, and I'd say mostly I hear a lot of people saying the lifestyle.
So a lot of people ask me about Europe, and they'll sort of make comparisons to countries like Spain and Portugal and Italy. How does Greece compare in terms of values with those? And I understand we've got micro markets all over the place. Obviously, yes. Even in Greece, you've got one market that might behave differently to another, and values are, quite different. You're in the most affluent part of Greece where you serve the Riviera. But overall, how does Greece compare in terms of values to those other three countries that I spoke about?
Look, where the most investors, when they come, when they're doing their survey in regards to investing in Greece, some people do say, before we made the decision to come to Greece, we were thinking of some other countries. And sometimes Spain and Portugal do pop up. But they end up saying that they preferred Greece because there are opportunities. They believe there still are opportunities in regards to the values of money and the potential of capital gains.
Listen, and I can tell you, you're spot on. You're talking about tourism, lifestyle, but I can also tell you from a political point of view in some countries, example Australia for a moment, where laws have changed and it's not as attractive to be investing in real estate because of capital gains tax and changes to negative gearing rules. I envisage that there's going to be a lot of Australians that are going to be looking at, particularly Greek Australians, right, because of that connection. But I've also noticed, Peter, even just at my hotel or out and about when I've been here for the last 2 weeks, there is a lot of digital nomads, right? People that are, got their MacBook open up and you can tell that they're doing work with countries overseas. So I can picture that appeals to those as well.
There is, we do have a lot of digital nomads. There are incentives for them. And also after COVID, that trend started after COVID. A lot of people based, with the technology that everyone, started using, they can actually run their companies from a distance. I have people from the US coming here telling me we prefer to live here. We stay here for 6 months and I can run my company, online. So, and there are also tax incentives that have that encourage these people to come and work here.
Okay. So Greece, they're the reasons why we think are good times to be actually buying, and why Greece now. But I want to move on to my second question that keeps coming up.
Yes.
Can anyone buy? Can a foreigner invest in Greece?
Anybody can buy in Greece.
Anyone
can. The only thing you need, technically, is to have a passport and to issue a Greek tax number. It's I call it AFM number. In Greek, it's called Afimi. It's the Greek tax number, which is quite easy to issue.
Okay, so I want to get this clear. To buy real estate in Greece, anyone can, but before you do, you need to obtain a European passport or a Greek passport.
You need to have a any passport. You don't need a Greek passport.
Oh, any passport.
You can come with your Australian passport.
Right.
Okay? When you come to Greece, you have a lawyer or an accountant to help you issue the Greek tax number, the AFM number.
Right.
That's all you technically. That's
How
all
long
you
does
need.
that number take to get?
It wouldn't take more than 2 days.
Okay, so that's an easy process.
Yeah.
Okay, so bottom line is anyone can buy real estate in Greece. You need a passport. It's a simple 2-day process to get what we would consider an ABN number in Australia, like what you call it, AFM?
Afimi. AFM number,
Okay.
Greek tax number.
Now, I want to ask you, how much does it actually cost to buy? Like, for instance, in Australia, we know that, when you buy, you got to pay stamp duty in addition to the price. I'd love to know about the legal fees, the transfer fees, notary costs, any register costs. Like, what are the add-on costs in addition to the property?
Okay, once a person identifies a property and they've come to an agreement on the price, the closing costs will be an additional around about 8.5 to 9, maximum 10% above that. And I'll break it down for you.
Okay.
The average, this is an average, the real estate agent fee is around about 2%. Okay. the legal fees about 1.5%, plus minus. Okay? You have a one-off transfer tax that goes to the tax department, which is 3%. Okay, one-off. Then you have the property registry fee, which is about 0.55%. You have the notary fee, which is 1%. So basically, that's they're your fees. That's on signing day when you close the property and the transaction has been concluded. So they're your closing costs.
Okay, so essentially what we're saying is, in addition to the purchase price that you get after the offer has been accepted, just for your own calculations, you should be working on roughly 10%.
Maximum 10%.
Costs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next question that keeps coming up from people inquiring about investing in Greece, and that is, can overseas buyers get a mortgage from a Greek bank? So, I mean, let's assume that there's two types of buyers. There is a small group of buyers that might be cash buyers,
yes,
right? And then in addition to that, there's other buyers who are going to borrow, right? So do they borrow from a bank in Greece, or should they be borrowing from the bank that they already have in their country?
Okay, it depends on the country. Greek banks, the past 5 years, they've started giving loans again, because during the crisis, there was an issue. They weren't really giving loans very easily. Now it's quite easy, as long as you have a good track record financially, to get a loan. So nearly anybody can get a loan in Greece from a Greek bank. They usually finance around about 60% of the amount of the property. So in order to proceed with the process, you'd have to have the 40%.
Okay. And that 40% might be in cash, right?
Yeah, it'd have to be with a bank transfer or
be with a bank
check.
transfer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That'll have to be one-off.
Correct.
On the day of the signing of the contract.
Okay. And can I ask you, roughly what sort of interest rates are Greek banks giving, and are there certain banks that are more attractive to foreigners?
Look, in general, most banks are okay with foreigners.
Yeah.
They become much more flexible. And the average interest rate is around about 3.5% plus minus. It's around about there now. 3.5%. Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Something that I want to mention about before, the 60% is the average that they will finance. There are some cases where they actually reach even to 80% for foreign investors. That's not happening lately.
Right. Okay. So hypothetically, if you're in Australia or the USA or any country and you borrowed money from your local bank, you already have a relationship there with them. Yes. They might use existing property that you already have as security. So that's also an option. That
is an option, Tom. I've had clients, specifically from Australia, I had some clients that they actually got the loan from their bank in Australia.
Right.
And I've seen it with a client from Dubai also. So there are some clients, they have a better relationship with their bank from their country, and they can actually get a loan from there. Of course, they have to offset mortgage or property that they have in their country, usually.
What's the rate again, interest rate, current rate?
3.5.
Okay. What have rates been doing in Greece in recent times? Have they been going up, down? Where's it been? Or have they been stable?
The past 4 or 5 years, they've been stable.
Right.
They've been stable, around about there. There was a period where they were quite lower.
Yeah.
Okay. But in general, they're stable.
And I'm curious, in a lot of countries, there's a correlation between interest rates and the market. When rates go down, there's more demand from buyers, right? When rates go up, it might scare some buyers away. What's it like here in Greece? Is that the same, or is it different because of the expat?
I'll tell you, because most of the foreign investors, they buy with, they don't get a loan. I'd say from my agency, nearly 85% of the buyers will buy with cash. They have the funds. So basically, that's...
Okay, so that's interesting. So the majority of the sales that you have transacted are cash sales.
Yes.
You're dealing with an affluent population.
Correct, yes. But there are some cases where I'd say the local market if the interest rates go up, the local buyers will be impacted. There will be a slowdown,
Right.
just like other countries.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Big question. It's taxes, right?
Yes.
What taxes will I pay while I own the property? While you own it, what are you paying on an ongoing basis?
Okay. The main tax that you'll have as a property owner or investor is the annual property tax, which is in Greek, it's called emphia. This is like a rule of thumb. Approximately, it depends on how old the property is, what floor it is, and what area. But the average would be about anywhere from, I'd say, about €8 per square meter per year. Okay, it's issued once a year and in installments. I can't remember if it's 8 or 10 installments. So just keep in mind about 8, 10 max euro per square meter per year.
Okay, so if you had a unit, let's say in Lifava,
Okay,
that
yes.
was 100 square meters, you would pay 800
About 800 to 1,000 euros
per year.
Yeah.
And you can do that in installments.
It comes in, you get installments.
Okay. Is there any like local council charges, any, you got to pay rental income tax if you're
Yes,
getting rent?
That's something I wanted to also mention. If somebody rents out their property,
Yeah.
there's an income tax, which basically it's, as a private individual, it's quite, it can become quite high. It's around about 15% up to the first 12,000 euros income per year.
Yes.
From 12,000 to 25,000 euros, it's around about 25%.
Yes.
And anything, this is in scales, anything above 25,000 starts becoming 40%. So it becomes a little bit,
Right.
it's not very...
So essentially what we're saying is the more expensive the property, if you're going to rent it out, the more rent you get, the more you're going to be paying, and
Correct.
it's scaled in a way that it goes up not evenly, it dramatically goes up on the real expensive ones.
Correct. That's why people that come in and they invest, they want to buy, let's say, a portfolio of properties. They actually put it under a company. So the rental income there, the tax on that would be 22%, because companies in Greece right now have about 22% income tax.
Can I just touch on that for a moment? The company tax rate is 22%?
22%, correct.
Okay. Personal tax rates, they vary based on your
vary.
income.
Yeah.
The majority of the properties that you're selling, are they being sold in a company entity, or are they buying personal names?
Personal. Most of them are personal.
names.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question that I'm asked regularly by people, and that is, what happens when I sell, right?
Okay.
Are you up for capital gains tax? So if you bought something for, say, 500,000, and let's assume you sell it many, many years later for 1 million,
Okay.
right? Is there capital gains tax?
Okay. There has been a law that's been passed for capital gains. It's 15% on your profit, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
For example, if you bought something with 500,000 euros and you sell it for 600, you'll pay 15,000 euros capital gains. But what happens is they freeze it every year.
Right.
They freeze it just to create an incentive. And this at the end of 2026, like January 2027, it'll be reinstated. But it's most likely that they'll stall it again for another 12 months. So they did pass the law, but for the past 4 or 5 years, they freeze it. So
Wow.
somebody can sell their property now, they don't pay anything.
Well, listen, I've got to tell you, at the moment in Australia, we all know since the budget that was passed in 2026 in May, capital gains tax in Australia has absolutely skyrocketed, and I can see that being one attractive thing. Like, you've got to, essentially pay half your profits.
Well,
Half your profits, which brings me on to another part of the same question, and that is the selling costs when you sell. So right now we're talking about, like, when you sell, what's involved. We've covered capital gains tax. What are the selling costs involved? Like,
Okay, you'd have to put a solicitor, a lawyer, to represent you. Again, here it's about 1% plus minus the expense. Then you'd have to get an engineer to prepare various certificates.
Yeah.
You need a energy efficiency certificate.
Yeah.
Which it's not very. It doesn't have a high cost. It's around about €150.
What about the
plus
engineer's
minus.
report? Is that expensive?
That's the energy efficiency certificate.
That's it, yeah.
And then there's also an energy building ID certificate that comes out. That could be around about €1,000 plus minus, depending on how about that property. So you got the lawyer, engineer, capital gains this year don't exist, and a real estate agent if you assign a real estate agent, which is average.
So can I just ask you, roughly selling costs with an agent and selling costs with a solicitor, what are they?
So it's basically 2%, 3%,
Right.
max
About
3%. Yeah.
Okay, and with solicitors?
No, sorry, the agent will be about 2%.
Yeah.
The lawyer will be about 1%.
1%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So total 3%.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you on to the next question.
Yes.
So we had to get through some of the boring bits because these things matter, right? They're laws.
Definitely.
But I've got to tell you, I'm being bombarded, Peter, by people asking me which areas are the smartest long-term investments. Well, you'd know. Everyone loves the crystal ball and say, go for this area, this area. So I've been traveling, we did a lot of work in your part of the woods called the Riviera. I've traveled to, not on this trip, but I've done it many times, Thessaloniki. I've traveled to pretty much all of Greece, the islands, Crete, did on this trip. Like Kalamata. Obviously, a lot of people, particularly if you've got Greek heritage, you're always drawn towards an area where your roots are, right? However, a lot of the expat buyers have got no Greek heritage in them. So I want to ask for both groups of people, like where do you, and I mean, no one has a monopoly on the truth. This is your view, right?
Yeah, true.
What suburbs do you still think are underrated?
Okay, look, first of all, most people, like the interest is Athens Riviera, it's Thessaloniki.
So can you just confirm for people, what does Athens Riviera mean? What area?
Basically the coastal areas of the Athens city.
Starting
from
where?
South suburbs, let's say. You could say it starts from Piraeus all the way up to the end of the line, which is Sunio. Okay. You could technically say that, it's not 100%. There are different theories. They're great, but it's...
So what do you think of that area as an investment?
It's still growing, even though the best time for people that wanted to come into the market would have been like 8 years ago. That was the hugest growth. So the past, about 3 years back, the growth was like 8 to 9% every year.
Right.
This year it's going to be around about 3.5%. So there's still potential for growth. Why? There's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of things going on, like investments. You've got the Hellenikon, the enormous park that's going on at the old airport in the Athens Riviera. You have a lot of development going on, a lot of investment going on. So there's still huge potential.
That's got to be one of the most talked about developments, I'd say, in Europe at the moment. Like everyone just tells me about, the old airport.
Yes.
Which you call
Hellenikon.
Right.
Yes. Hellenikon.
So how big is that project? How many properties are we talking about?
I don't remember off my heart. Like we're talking about thousands of properties, and a lot of them are being sold. And
when is that building going to get completed? Do you know?
Look, the first batch. Yeah. They're delivering the first batch next early 2027.
Right.
We actually collaborate with them, and we made some sales in there with clients of ours. So the first batch will be ready next year. People will be able to move into their apartments. But the whole project will probably take, because there are like a lot of common areas, it might take about up to 10 years. But the places that they will deliver, they will be livable.
Well, just for the record, I want to let you know, as someone that's toured around a lot of places, when I invest in Greece, the most likely spot I'll be buying, the first one will be in that part of the world, and it'll be in Glyfada, right? And Glyfada, for those that are watching here, the best way to explain it, it's the double bay of Greece. It's got all the facilities and conveniences that many people would have got used to around the world, but it still has a very strong Greek flavour and beaches as well. So it sort of ticks a lot of the boxes there, right?
True.
And I'm going to ask you a moment about where would you buy if you had 500,000 euro. But before we do that, I just want to, touch on some of the other areas, if that's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? I want to touch on central Athens, right? So are there areas there that you think have got a lot of upside?
There is a lot of potential in downtown Athens, and a lot of people are investing in downtown Athens. The central part, Plaka, Kolonaki, a lot of people are interested in those areas, but there are some other areas close by that still have potential. So a lot of people do invest in these areas. Some people bought properties and they renovated old apartments and they rented them for short-term rentals, and they make pretty good returns, and they're happy with that. But slowly there's a crackdown on these type of short-term rentals. So I wouldn't recommend somebody that looks at that type of investment to look into it as a long-term solution. Okay,
that's very good observation. And I have to say, I've noticed it myself because I've stayed in some of these properties in the past, right? City is an area that I've stayed in some of those properties where you can tell they are professional landlords, Airbnb type landlords, right? Where they've bought units and you can tell they've been spruced up and it's purely a money-making exercise. But what you're saying is, don't make a decision based on a yield, right? Because laws are changing.
Correct.
And can I ask you, Crete, I spoke at a conference there 3 weeks ago, so I did go to Crete, and I've been to Crete a number of times, and I've spent a lot of time in Crete. Your view on Crete?
Crete is very popular. Yeah. There is demand for Crete. It's for me, it's one of the, from what I see from the interest, it's one of the top 5 places in Greece right now for foreign investment, and there are great opportunities. It's developing. They're going to have a new airport anytime soon. And it combines, for me, Crete is, you get a flavour of all the different types of islands in Greece. You can see all that in Crete. You see a little bit of Mykonos, you see a little bit of, it has different vibes.
While we're talking about that, the islands that we all know Greece for, and when we talk about islands, we don't necessarily go to Crete. We think Mykonos, Santorini, Paros. Your view on investment in those areas?
The investment for basically, as mentioned before, the top 5 from what I see is Riviera, Thessaloniki, Mykonos, Santorini, and Crete. And then you can say Peloponnesus and some other areas, as you mentioned before. So Mykonos and Santorini are there's high demand for these islands, like the luxury sector. There's a lot of interest.
So for me, one of the decisions I think, Peter, as someone that has been working in real estate, I look at areas also, are they a 12-month area or are they a 6-month area? Does that sort of make sense? Is it the sort of area that you know you're going to go there and it's going to be sort of operating there? Or is it, and when I think of places like Santorini, is that a 12-month area or not?
No. Compared to other areas, no.
Like, for instance, Glyfada, right? To me, it would strike me as a 12-month area, wouldn't it?
100%. Glyfada is a 12-month area. And I do get a lot of investors. They tell me, should I invest in Glyfada, Voula, Vouliagmeni, or should I go to Mykonos or some other island? It's basically depending on what they want. But what happens is when they do end up buying on an island, they call me up after a few years and say, you know what, I'm selling it. Find me something in Glyfada. Like, why? Because in Glyfada, or anywhere in Athens, it's easy to go to any island during summer. You know, or in winter, they're like winter destinations. There are ski resorts that are very close by, an hour and a half drive. So having a base somewhere in Athens, actually, for a foreigner, sometimes it's actually a better solution because they're not trapped in one destination.
Oh, well, I can tell you from my own point of view, Peter, when I'm coming in and out of Greece, the day that I land or the day that I'm leaving, it's always going to be around Glyfada, and the reason why is accessibility to the airport is very simple, and you pretty much get off the plane and you're at your hotel, which I don't know property there. You're at your hotel in no time. So I can see that. Is there any other areas that come to your mind that also I haven't touched on that you think to yourself, man, keep an eye on this area?
100%. Yeah. The outer Riviera, let's say, I'd say Lagonisi and Saronida towards Sunio.
Yes.
These are about a 20-minute drive from Glyfada, coastal areas. There is huge potential there. A lot of people, even locals, they are buying in these areas because they're basically seeing that the money that they will pay to buy an apartment in Glyfada, they could actually buy a house with a pool in those areas.
Right.
Now, that depends on someone's decision and their lifestyle, because we have a lot of people who prefer the apartment, less hassles. It depends on what somebody wants. But families are preferring to go to these areas. So there is huge potential and potential for growth in these areas.
One thing that has come up in the questions that have been sent to me by people who are curious about buying here is if they buy an apartment instead of a house, do you pay levies every quarter or every month for the unit?
Yeah, there's we call them common costs.
Yep.
In Greek, it's called kinochrista.
Yeah.
Depending on how complicated the building is, it's not that much. For example, a 100 square meter, 2-bedroom unit in Glyfada, it'd be around, the monthly expenses for these common costs would be around about 60, 100 euros. And if it's a building that has a common pool, it might even go up to 150, or it depends on the building.
Okay.
There could be a building with concierge and security. Well, then it'll be 300 or even more a month.
Okay.
But the average is about, for a 2-bedroom unit, about 60 euros a month.
Let's assume I invest in Glyfada, and I choose, and I'm the kind of person that would probably not rent out that property.
Okay.
Right? I want to ask, because people have asked me, and this is the next question, is can you generate decent rental yield in Greece or not?
Look, the average yield, I'd say it's the average of Europe. Long-term rental,
Yeah.
long-term, there's two scenarios, furnished or unfurnished.
Yeah.
Long-term unfurnished rental, when I say long-term, I mean a year up to 3 years, the yield is around about 3.5%.
Yep.
Furnished, it can go up to about 4.5.
Yep.
Now, short-term, it can be much higher. It can even reach 7%.
Yeah.
But as mentioned before, it's not something that someone can look into long-term because there are restrictions with these.
If you had a property, would you rent it out furnished or unfurnished?
Actually, I prefer furnished. Actually, I have some of my own. When you furnish it, you can get a better return. Yeah, slightly, about 1% or.
Right. Okay, my last formal question as such is, what are the biggest mistakes foreign buyers make, right? Yeah. A lot of people make mistakes. Let's share the info so the people watching this don't make the same mistakes.
100%. One of the main mistakes that people make sometimes, they come to Greece and sometimes they get a little bit relaxed. They think that they hear various things about Greece and they think that things are not as strict or regulated. So they change automatically. Even though if you see somebody in Australia, the way they behave when it comes to following some procedures are 100%, some people when they come here, they're a bit relaxed in that perspective. So that's what they have to be careful of. Like I've had cases where somebody will jump, they'll see a property and they just give a deposit without asking any professionals or a real estate agent or a lawyer, and they give a deposit and then they lose their money. And then they call us up, they go, oh, can you help us? We had this case. I'm like, you should have contacted professionals. So the biggest mistake is sometimes when they get overexcited and they don't come to professionals. They should, if they don't want to use a real estate agent, at least get a lawyer and follow some basic procedures. Have the lawyer do a due diligence,
Yes.
check the property.
Yes.
And it's not just having the lawyer do the due diligence. It's not just the legal part. Assign an engineer to do a technical audit of the property too. So that's where a real estate agent can, a regulated real estate agent can help them. They can help them and advise them to cover all these aspects to be 100% protected. So that's one of the common mistakes that I see, that they just, they don't also, they should look into the professionals before they come into Greece. Go online, check out Google reviews about lawyers, real estate agents, do a little bit of homework there make your phone calls, interview people before you come to Greece. Be prepared. Don't just come to Greece and start going around looking at properties.
Peter, you've been absolutely incredible and thorough in answering these questions in a clear, concise, no fluff, right?
Thanks.
And I've been dealing with you now for a couple of years, so highly recommended to those that are watching, highly recommended. He has no commission breath. He tells the truth, and that's what you want when you're buying in another country. But apart from those 9 formal questions that I wanted to get through, I want to ask you a few fun questions myself.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
What are wealthy Greeks buying right now that foreigners haven't discovered yet?
Wealthy Greeks will invest in holiday homes. They will invest in some islands as a secondary, let's say, investment. They will invest in land. Whenever they find the land that makes sense, they will buy a plot.
So they land bank thinking it's...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's basically,
Right.
land and
Okay. I want to ask you yourself, if you had 500,000 euro, and for the audience, depending on what country you're in, hypothetically, if you're in Australia, that's roughly a million, roughly thereabouts, Aussie. What would you be investing right now if you had 500,000 euros?
I would... Ideally, I like getting small apartments.
Yes.
Furnish them, renovate them, furnish them, and have them as a rental income. So you can buy with 100,000 euros, depending on which area of Athens. I wouldn't mind the area because there's a lot of demand for small units.
Right.
They don't really exist. It's not easy to find. People want to rent them.
Right.
Okay. So that's one scenario. The other scenario would be further out, as mentioned, towards Lagonissi, Saronida. There are some plots that you could invest in, and even if you don't build them, you can just keep them there, and you'll have capital gains in the next 3-4 years.
Beautiful. Now, when I look at Australia, I look at Bondi, Byron Bay, I look at the US, Miami. What suburb today feels like that?
I'd say definitely Glyfada.
Yeah.
Because Glyfada is more, there's a younger crowd in Glyfada. It's got the clubs, it's got the shops. So I'd say Glyfada and Vouliagmeni too, and Voula. And by the way, Vouliagmeni is like one of the most expensive areas of Athens. We're talking about average prices.
How much?
Range. We've sold properties at 8,000 to 12,000 euros per square meter, and we're talking about their older properties that need renovation. And there are new properties that go from 25,000 to 30,000 euros per square meter, and these are real figures and not just... I can tell you we had a case where somebody was asking for a new development, 30,000 euros per square meter. We had an offer of 29,000 euros and it wasn't accepted. So it's a very, very hot area.
Okay. Final thing I want to ask you. If you were sitting across this table from someone in London, Dubai, New York, Sydney, who's thinking about investing in Greece, Saudi Arabia, Israel, what would you want them to know before they spend their first euro? What do you think they should know before they go off and spend money?
I think they should know the process, what they need to do, the steps. And also I would inform them that the process the past years is much more safe than what it was. When somebody buys a property in Greece now, it's very safe, the whole process, because it's become more complicated for the sellers. It takes a little longer than what it was about 10 years ago. 10 years ago, somebody would buy a property, they'd sign a contract, and a lot of things were not 100% correct. Now, in order for a seller to have, for a lawyer and a notary, because the notary coordinates the whole process, to give the green light, it takes they've searched the titles and every process and all the certificates very thoroughly. So when somebody buys a property now in Greece, they're very safe. So that's something I'd like them to know.
Okay. Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to be able to have this conversation with you. You've been, as I said, very, very thorough. For those of you that are actually thinking about investing in Greece, I think the process that Peter said is the number one thing he'd advise someone sitting across a table. That process has been well explained here, and I'm sure my history with you shows me that you're the kind of person that will happy to take an email or phone call from anyone that's got any question on real estate. And I would assume that you've got a network of people that you can provide and help with, engineers, whether they're, solicitors, notaries and all that. Would that be right?
Yes, we got, because we're a regulated company, also a member of the RICS, everybody we work with is very ethically, they have an ethical background in how they work.
Yeah, well, I think that's why it's brought us together. You're a learning agent. You invest in training and education. You're part of my training program. You also go overseas to other countries and invest in a lot of personal development. I think recently you were in, where were you recently? In
Austria.
In Austria, the FIAPSI conference.
Yes, and in March we were at MIPING, the MIPING exhibition at Cairns. So we continuously invest in training and in general in real estate.
All right. Well, this comes to the end of the conclusion. We flipped it around this podcast. Normally, you'd be sort of saying, thank you, Tom, there, but I'm going to thank you. Sun's out, Greece is out.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for joining us today. It's honestly, it's an honor.
Thank you.
We've come to an end of yet another episode of Inside Greek Real Estate. Today we had the honor of having Tom Panos with us, and we actually flipped the interview. He asked me questions, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions for future episodes, feel free to drop a message or send an email. Thank you.